These are two questions. I try to answer the first one. The story about Emina was just, it was actually me who stumbled upon the story of Emina. It was a box. I found a box from my late grandmother. She had died, I think, 10 or 15 years before that. And I found this box with letters, diaries, photographs, and documents which were telling me something about the time of her life she didn't tell me about, I didn't know about yet. And that was interesting in the first place, to read that. But it took me a lot of time to decide. That was 20 years ago. Mostly 20 years ago, that I found that, and to decide to do a story about it, on it, and what to tackle in the story actually, and how to handle the story, with which focus. That took me 10 more years. I mean, a thinking process. So I didn't know from the beginning that this would be a book. And these foundings in this box, I mean, in the first place, they asked me a lot of questions about a woman who apparently changed so much, who apparently had so many possibilities, and then she changed into someone who turned into a woman who was not only betraying her own dreams and plans, but also who got ignorant, who looked the other way. And this was disturbing. And so for me, the start of a longer work, of a new project, of a book, is mostly not something I say, okay, I know something to tell, but it's a question. It's a question who I want to find out about. It's a question where I want to find more about. And so it's a process. And so I found my way into this story, and it included a lot of general historical research, not only about my grandmother, but also about people like her. And to your other question, why I chose to do a graphic novel about it. I mean, this is what I can do. This is what my profession is. So I'm drawing, and drawing is my way of telling a story. Drawing is also my way of finding out about things and stories, because drawing is also a process to think, always. Maybe or you can also say it's a process, it's a way of researching, of course, in combination with real research, but you look behind the things, you think around the things, and so on. So drawing is my way of narration. It's storytelling, of course, but it's also asking questions. And I think, of course, graphic novels are capable of showing certain things, gaps, atmospheres, questions. Also, I mean, it's all about the gap, the gutter, about showing things which are actually have been silenced, which have been ignored, or the book is a lot about silence, also about not speaking about, ignoring, and so I think you can surround, by drawing, you can surround things to show the holes, the blackouts, the blacks. Yeah. This book took me, I would say, all in all, almost 3 years. But the process itself was a little longer because, like I said, to proceeding to coming closer to the topic took me some thinking process, of course, but then the researching process took a lot of time to see archives, photographs, diaries from other persons, and then also the family, the researching the family history. That takes time, and it's very important because this is the facts on which my story is based on. But then drawing itself is always part of the process. So I try to draw from the beginning. In the beginning, it's simple. I just try to draw my persons from the photographs, but then I try to maybe drawing little maps, where's my story going, but then drawing sceneries, and all these drawings are also part of getting to know my story. Then, for example, in the middle part, the scene which takes place in Berlin, I really tried to find out how did the houses, this neighborhood, and what happened, how did it look like, as much as I could. What are there for, what can I find as a historical research about November pogroms in 1938, and how can I wave it into my story, all these sources. So this takes time, and the story making itself takes time. So dramaturgy, this is I think for me the most challenging part and most interesting part. So there is, I think the key scene for me is the scene which I just spoke about, taking place at the November pogroms, where we really see how Emina is closing her eyes, or is actually deciding to look away, sadly. And I started from this scene and worked, I think, in one way and in the other way. So in her past and in her future, and try to see what was the result, what happened before. And of course, it was also always a mixture of real facts that I could find out, but also then reconstructing what probably happened. And then sometimes, of course, also taking my artistic license to say, okay, I fill that in here because I want to have the story like that, because it's not actually about my grandmother. The book is actually about a person like my grandmother have probably been, but like a lot of people have been probably. It's a character study, it's a psychological study, but it's also a historical study, and it's a reconstruction to follow this very ambiguous, ambivalent person. And yes, so it's going back and forth. I'm drawing, I'm doing a lot of storyboards. I did several versions of the storyboard. The storyboard is something which I talked about also already with my editor. He was very important, and I had also test readers all the time who read the scenes and told me what they could read there, what they could see and feel. And then when I did the coloring, I mean, drawing the final pages, this took me, I think, 1 year. it was very intense, and I drew every day, and in the end also the nights. A deadline helps then. Yeah. And it was, yeah, but of course it's like it's the same with the other books. This process is in the end, it's becoming very intense, and you go very deep into the story. It's a great experience, but also very strenuous, of course. I was happy when it was finished. this decision, of course, is not unproblematic to decide to use your family member, my family member, as my protagonist and not in a positive way. So I was clear about what I did there, what I did, yeah. So I showed something about her, but at the same time, I was always clear that this is a fictional version of what I found. So it's, but I think the topic is too important because this is something we should learn about. We should learn about history and what happens if individual decisions are done like that, and in the majority done like that, and then we support actually cruel and murdering systems. So so we should be clear. And I think for me it was also a learning process. How are these little steps to like she did, to come from a person we are actually hoping for her in the beginning. She wants to stand on her own feet, and there's so much hope, and she opens her eyes and she opens herself up, and then comes fear, and then of course come problems appear, and then she decides, well, in a wrong direction for herself but also for the others. And this is something for me it was important to find out, but I also found it important not to judge it in the story itself, but I think it's the reader who does it. The reader finds out. The reader is really challenged to think. So there's no narration voice who is telling about what is right and what is wrong. So I just give the narration itself, but of course I give the structure. And to deal with my family was no problem at all, because they really supported me. I told them from the beginning what my idea was and why I think it's important to do. And I couldn't ask my grandmother anymore, that's for sure, because she was dead, but I could ask all the other relevants, and they were okay what I was doing, and they were supporting me, and I showed them from time to time what I did. So I kept them informed, and actually they are very they do very much agree with the book. Not to speak about family history was also in my family something that happened all the time, but we didn't even realize that, we didn't even notice. Only when I started with this process of the book and researching, I realized how little we spoke about what did our grandparents do. And so, and I had the experience also to finding out with people I spoke with, so in my age, that they also say, well, actually we never asked, or actually we asked but we didn't get answers, or actually we asked but it was really strange then. So this is something, I don't think that everyone is obliged to do that. So, but I think what everyone is really obliged to is to think about, we are not responsible what happened in the past, but we are responsible absolutely that it doesn't happen again. We are responsible for the future, our generation. And so I think it's so much important that we learn from history, about history, and not to repeat history. Mina, I did all by myself. So I was the writer as well as the researcher as well as the artist. But I have other experiences, very good ones, with other books, also graphic novels where I collaborated with writers. So was my first bigger work called Gift, is Poison, means poison in English. This is a criminal story taking place in 19th century northern Germany, little town Bremen. It's an actual crime case that had happened, and Per Meter is not only a writer but also a researcher about her case, and he wrote in Germany we say a scenario, so it's like a script actually for a comic book. And that was really interesting for me to start this project, because it was also connected to a lot of historical research, to historical sources, not photographs because it was before, but drawings and also text files. And I find it very enriching and helpful to have these kind of collaborations, because it's not only a one-way thing. It's not only the writer tells me what to do, but so writer has an idea, I read the text, do some drawings, and then show the drawings to the writing person, and she or he reacts again on this. So it's a collaboration process, which is quite complex sometimes, also complicated sometimes, but of course bears a lot of possibilities. So it was Gift I drew only in pencil, so it's very black, and it's also a dark story, but it looks like a dark story. So that was I'm coming actually from the black and white thing, so a grayscale thing. And Ermina, was the first time where I let more color in. So because for me with Ermina, it was important that it's not only that I can show all kind of atmosphere, all kind of scale, grayscale, but also some colors in the more positive scenes, in the more hopeful scenes. And Sommer ihres Lebens, the summer of her life, there's also an English edition, was after Ermina, 2 years after it. And this is an episode comics about, it's a fictional comic about also an old woman who thinks about her life, and she's in the old people's home, retirement home. And this was an interesting process. I really like Thomas, the author, Thomas von Steinecker. He's writing novels normally, and he's very interested also in this process, how to narrate stories in images, by pictures. So we tried together to find key scenes which are maybe standing for the rest of her life. It's several short episodes. It's a shorter book. It's only 80 pages. And it was a lot of work still, and it was also a good collaboration. And always when I do this kind of collaborations, I'm learning a lot. So what I learned illustration. This is what I studied. So I learned drawing, but writing and story building and storyline, and so this is something I'm all learning all the time. And of course also about drawing, learning never stops, never.